Official there, 6. Just waiting for the official timer. That was good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of Universal City. It's June the 4th, 2024. Call for a quorum check.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Bulman.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Putt.
Here.
Councilmember Rubal.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. We will stand for the invocation given by Mayor Pro Tem, and then I'll leave him.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather tonight. Help us to listen to all the information and to work together to make the best decisions for our residents of Universal City and for our community. Please keep all of our residents, city staff, and business members safe and healthy. Especially please focus on our first responders and keep them safe as they serve our community. Please keep our military out of harm's way as they respond to conflicts throughout the world. We ask this in your name, amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
First off, staff reports and other discussion items. And Ms. Turner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just one item for you. I wanted you to note that we did put the budget calendar in there. If you could please get those items on your very busy social calendars and work calendars and children's calendars, whichever calendar you need. The most important one that we have coming up for you is going to be on July 9th, and it's important because that is our biggest meeting that we have for our draft budget, where we will need some feedback from City Council on that. That will begin at 4:30. On or about the 28th of June, we will be sending your draft budgets out to you. That will give you a good time period to look at it. And then we highly recommend that you look at it as quickly as you can. And we're sorry, it always falls during the 4th of July weekend. And then please make an appointment with myself and Christine to go over any particular budget questions that you have. I always say when we get to the July 9th meeting, it should be your second budget presentation, not your first. So if you know you're going to be busy, you can get with me right away and we'll get some time on the calendar for you. And then I also wanted to point out that we have a second work session if we need it. If there's a lot of things that we need to clarify or other points of clarification, and that is tentatively set for July 23rd. We typically don't use that, but we have it there just in case we need it. Thank you, ma'am.
And staff report was Ms. Christine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay. And I know you're all aware that the city received $5.1 million in ARPA funding over the past few years. To date, we've spent 2.5 approximately for public emergency response. Water sewer infrastructure was $400,000. The cybersecurity infrastructure, $759,000. And then for mental health officers, we still have $700,000 that we'll spend over the next few years. That will leave a remaining of approximately $800,000. And that's because our public works director was able to secure funding to the county to complete some of the other water sewer infrastructure. And so what we're asking is that we are, once we've met the obligation, forgive me, let me start over. When we have the funding come from the county, we'll have to pay the upfront cost and then they will reimburse us. Once we are reimbursed that money, we'd like to take the $800,000 and place it into the capital replacement fund in order to earn interest for the fire truck. and then pay out before December 2026. That's it.
Any questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ma'am, initially there was discussion about an extension, a deficit in needs for the First Bite project. Does this account for including that extension?
Yeah, I can answer that for you. So yes, you are correct. When we got the bid estimates back for the pipe bursting project for the sewer lines, it was 1.2 million. So the county is going to pay for that project. So it does cover the shortfall. But what we'll do is we'll use our 800,000 to pay for the project. And then as the project goes on a monthly basis, we submit to the county for reimbursement. And so those funds will just flop back and forth between the city and the county. What we're asking is once we get all of the $801,000, we're asking for council consideration to move forward, to put that into an interest-bearing account where we can use the funds and the interest toward the payment of the fire truck, which will be coming in early 2026, but we anticipate a payment in 2025.
And the last question is with regard to the general fund capital replacement fund. Essentially, what is its current health or state of reserve as of this time?
As of this budget, there's $386,000 in it. $386,000.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Councilor Vaughan has a question.
Councilman Vaughan?
You guys, we talked to Mr. You and I talked about the timing of this. Did you just clarify and say the trucks are going to come in 2026, not 2027? Did I hear that correctly?
So we have two fire trucks coming, one in 2026, is that what I said?
It's actually 2027.
It is 2027, I'm sorry. So yes, we have to have all of the funding expensed by December 31st. So we'll be making a payment in late 2026 and the trucks should come January, February of 2027. You are correct, sir.
Okay. And so are you confident that a prepayment on those trucks in 2026 will meet the grant requirement to spend it by 2026, even if the vehicles don't come until 2027?
Yes, sir. I actually checked the compliance report that was sent out on March the 28th, and I contacted the SLFRF, and they said that absolutely, if we have expensed the money, whether we've received the item or not, it's still considered an obligation and expense as far as their requirements.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just ask one clarify. Randy, on your sewer pipe bursting project, how many months will that take?
I think it's programmed for 8 months.
8 months. So we'll have completed the project long before the fire truck is set to have its first payment or arrival.
Any further questions?
Fitzpatrick?
I was just going to say, I know that the previous sitting council committed a lot of money for these two trucks, and so I'm very happy that we found another 800,000 that we can kind of earmark and put aside for this. I think that that's great, so thank you.
That's it? Thank you. Next is citizens will be heard. This is when the public is invited to address city council and speak on any matter not specifically listed on the public hearing or elsewhere. Please, as I call your name, there's 4 people signed up. Please state your name and your address. First I have Mr. Sid Dukes.
My name is Sid Dukes, and I reside at 9162 Gothic Drive. I've been a resident of UC since 1995. I want to congratulate the newly elected council members and mayor and place a challenge before you in a minute. You successfully campaigned for the things you deemed important, and you were supported by voters who shared your concern about those things. Now that you're elected, you're going to come into contact with information that you did not have the privilege to know about before. You may have to change your mind about an issue now that you have more information. It is not a sign of weakness. Remember, you represent not only those who helped you get elected, but all those who did not vote for you but call Universal City their home. If you pander to a special group on an issue, you're not representing all. What I want to talk to you about is the golf course. I am a volunteer there and have been that way for about 7 years now. I decided to do a little research on who is using our golf course. I did this on the 10th of May during the morning shift. As a starter, I get to speak to each golfer teeing off, and I ask them 3 questions. Do you live within Universal City? Do you live outside of Universal City? Do you live outside of San Antonio? The responses were interesting. Only 4 players out of the 76 that played that day lived in Universal City. 45 players lived outside UC. 27 lived outside of San Antonio. I realize it's not a very scientific research effort, but it says this to me. On that morning, 72 people who did not live in UC visited our city. They spent money at our golf course. They bought refreshments there. Maybe they had lunch there as well. They possibly got gas, pardon the pun, somewhere in town, or bought lunch somewhere on Pat Booker. Maybe they stopped at an auto parts store to get an item, perhaps bought coffee on the way to the golf course. The point being, if the distribution stays the same for each shift of the golf course, morning and afternoon, then roughly 95% of the people using our course are from out of town. Well, let that sink in for just a moment. We have a public venue that charges for use and potentially brings in over 1,000 people per week to our city who do not live here. That is a great opportunity. I encourage this council to continue to support our golf course. In my opinion, it's one of the single largest attractions of people from outside the city, except for maybe Randolph Air Force Base. It is a challenging layout and it needs continued care to be a well-respected course. I dare say, with the drainage project being completed, and hopefully with an approval tonight to replace the greens, when these projects are done and the course is recovered, I think the green fees could be raised slightly, which would positively improve the revenue the course generates. And the replacement of the greens would improve the reputation of our course to rival any of the courses within a 50-mile radius. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Biggs.
Kim, would you like to comment?
That'd be fine.
You're welcome.
Now, this is an odd one on my part, is I'm going to call the former mayor, John Williams.
I'm not going to talk that much. Mayor Council, thanks. I'm John Williams is my name. I live at 13526 Mount Olympus here in Universal City. I've been a resident here for over 40 years. I think I know my city pretty well. I know all of you, obviously, working with you or having relations with you during council meetings. The one thing that's kind of different is being down here while you're up there. And the most embarrassing part is everybody in the back can see my head. 81 years old, it's okay. Actually, I'm here for 2 reasons. One, to congratulate all of you for serving your city, and I really appreciate that. And even being on this side now, it's kind of interesting because I testified at Austin last year, and it was the same kind of a feeling. I'm usually sitting up there, and I'm down here, and I'm testifying, so it's a little bit different, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you. Obviously, you know, I'm a diehard golf fan, and I've been a supporter of Olympia forever, and I strongly support the requirement that they have to rebuild the greens. And it's very interesting because those greens outlived their time a long, long time ago. And the interesting thing is that a lot of courses sometimes have to close when they rebuild their greens, which is not unusual at all. And these guys will testify to that; they know that. But our course is still open. And some courses are closed for 6 to 8 months to a year. We're going to stay open. And I think that's a testament to the crew here that really is working to make sure that we maximize the time that we have with our golf course open. And if you've had a chance to go out there and visit, if you look at the practice green off of where the sand traps are and very close to the driving range, that's the grass that's going to go in there. And that grass is going to be absolutely wonderful asset. Right now, our fairways are probably as good as any fairways, I would argue, in any part of San Antonio. They're really in great shape. We get those greens back up, it's going to be totally awesome. Let's see if there's anything else on that. No, that's it. That's it. We're still open, and there are some temporary greens, but I tell you what, gives you a good chance to drive the ball and then practice the pitching that you didn't get to do before. Okay. Anyway, strongly support obviously the funding for the new greens. I think it's critically important for us. And as Sid mentioned as well, the opportunity for many people to visit our city, and they do more things than just play golf. So now you've heard from me. I'll see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Doug Jenkins.
May I? Yes, thanks. This actually ties in with the first two topics. Indirectly. My name is Doug Jenkins. I live at 13502 Muses, and that is right at the corner of Muses and Mount Olympus between UC Boulevard and Phoenix, where people drive to get to the aforementioned golf course. My concern is the rate of speed at which people do that. It has become ridiculous, and it has become unsafe. Okay, I don't want to get too emotional because I'm a kid. A lot of people drive there at least 30, and I know because I drive 20. And when they follow me, they get very impatient. A lot of people drive 40 plus. One gentleman last night actually went, "Please, would you slow down?" And he did, and he actually rolled down to one and apologized. I said, "You're right, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm driving a hybrid, I can't hear the motor, and I didn't realize how fast I was going." People fly down that street. It's wide, it's straight, and I think they think it's some sort of drag strip. It's not. It's a residential street. I live there, my family lives there, a lot of people live there. And if you'll turn the page, I have a kid. That's my son. He just graduated from kindergarten. And I have raised him to be deathly afraid of streets because of that street. To this day, he will not poke a toe across a curb unless my mom and I are holding his hand. All it takes is one lapse of attention on his part to chase a ball, chase a dog, or just do a 6-year-old thing and forget what's going on. And somebody's going to hit him. And that's not going to be good. For me, or for that driver. Okay? I'm sorry, I wasn't going to get emotional. So here's some numbers. People like numbers, right? It is 0.33 miles from one stop sign to the other. If we disregard acceleration, deceleration, because I can't do math at that level, if you drive 20 miles an hour between those two stop signs, it will take you 60 seconds. If you drive 30 miles an hour, it will take you 40 seconds. If you drive 30, it will take you 40 seconds. If you drive 40 miles per hour, it will take you 30 seconds. You're saving 30 seconds of your life. That, I'm not a physicist either, but I did a little research on car stopping distance. That is a huge difference in what it takes to stop your car. You can read the numbers there if you want. It's less than 100 feet to stop your car from 20 miles an hour. If you're going 30, that's 153 feet. If you're going 40, that's 223 feet. That's the difference between avoiding someone, or a deer, or a dog, or a cat, and plowing them over and leaving a bloody mess in the street. Now, when I was in the Air Force, I was told people work for me, don't bring the problem, bring the solution, right? So, here's what I came up with, and I know I have zero experience in municipal government. Oh, this is probably pie in the sky. That's totally unrealistic, but this is what I came up with. I'm almost out of time. Park UCPD out there. That would have to be aggressive and consistent. I'm not talking just parking a car there, I'm talking actually writing citations. You would make a lot of money for the city. I'll tell you that right off the bat. Comically oversized speed limit signs. Some people may legitimately be unaware of the speed limit is 20. There are a couple of smallish 20-mile-an-hour signs. I'll be totally okay with one every block that is the size of that back wall back there. That might have some effect. I don't know, maybe not. Put a stop sign every cross street. I don't care. Put one on my street. Put one before my street. Put two before my street. I don't mind stopping. That might work, it might slow people down, but I'm sure they would still jack rabbit from stop sign, because that's what people do. The last one, probably most effective, speed bumps. I know nobody likes those, I'm hearing it already, nobody likes those. But is it worth a kid's life? Is it worth a dog's life? Is it worth anybody's life to get to the golf course 30 seconds sooner? I don't think so. I drive 20. It doesn't seem to be a big deal. Biggest speed limit that doesn't make an impact if you're 20 miles an hour, and I'm also totally okay with that. Thank you for your time. I apologize for going over. I apologize for getting emotional.
Mayor, I'm sorry if I could address a factual consideration to this topic. We have been working as a staff to identify the electronic speed boards for that particular area to test them out. We know that they have worked successfully in some of the other cities, and so we will be test piloting them hopefully before the end of the year in that area to see if we can get people to slow down, in addition to the regular stop signs that we have.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Jenkins, I was actually going to suggest that you make an appointment with our city manager to discuss some of those issues, and that way you will be rectified. Good information. And we have one last one, Ms. Kim Michael-Hart.
My name's Karen Engelhardt. I live at 736 Garden Drive.
Time for a pit stop.
Perfect timing.
You have to speak with the opportunity to speak without interference. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, on the agenda tonight, it says we're going to be discussing the rules of procedure for city council. I have no idea what that means. I am concerned that there might be an attempt to try to change the rules in a way that you want to silence the residents of this city who voted to put 3 of our council members on this council. That concerns me. Every resident of this city deserves representation. Every matter of concern to the residents deserves consideration. It's not a question of can we get in and out of city council in 30 minutes and get home with it. This is city council. This is where things are supposed to be discussed. Concerns of the residents are to be discussed here in this meeting and not anyplace else. So if we can't discuss them anyplace else, where are we supposed to discuss them? Okay, the council members are here because we voted on here. We voted each and every one of you here. And you represent all of us. Each of you represents all of us. And any change to the rules that would stifle the members of this community is a grave injustice to the voters who voted for these council members.
Thank you, Ms. Engelhardt. I appreciate the good words. That's all of the citizens to be heard. And we'll go on to the next item, which is announcements. And we'll start out with the city manager announcements.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have a couple this evening. If you've been down Kitty Hawk near the funeral home and the Grace Community Church, you've probably seen all the construction vehicles for well site 12. That work is near completion. These next few days, unfortunately for the residents and the businesses in that area, it will be very loud and it will be very wet. Not that everybody will see the water, but we are doing a 36-hour flow test on there. So there'll be a lot of water that will be coming out. Unfortunately, it is a requirement in order to make sure that we get good, clean water. So people, if they're walking in that area, they will see an abundance of water. So if anyone calls you, if you would please just forward them to myself or Randy, will explain the situation to them. And then the Ivy Lane project back behind the library is nearing completion. We are down to a punch list, and so it is very good to knock that street project off. That was one of our CBDG projects. As you know, you've been voting on those invoices, and you'll be getting a couple more here very quickly, and we'll close that project up. I also wanted to let you know, after we had told you on our water presentation a few weeks back that we were desperately seeking more water, and kudos to Randy and his staff. We have been able, for at least this year, to secure an additional 175 acre feet, remembering that each acre foot is approximately 325,000 gallons of water. So as we continue on with our hot temperature and we start getting cut by the Edwards, we are very close to ensuring that what we need, have all the water that we need to make sure that people have it for their homes and businesses. Again, also stressing, it is hot, please, conservation, doesn't matter how much water we have, people need to conserve. And that is all I have this evening, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Next is council member comments, and Mayor. I am going to hold my comments to the very end, and we'll start with Councilmember Vaughan, if you'd like to start us off. Nothing. Councilmember Vaughan.
Mr. Jenkins, I'm a big fan of people who do paperwork and slideshows and put in the effort. It's like my favorite thing on the planet, and I'm not joking. So I very much appreciate the time and effort you took on this. The funny thing is, I actually today got an email from another resident on Mount Olympus who said the exact same thing. He doesn't have kids, but I did get an email that said the exact same concern. It looks like you'll be able to talk to Kim, our city manager, and you'll be able to, learn more and figure out what you guys can do. But it does seem like you are not alone. It seems like a lot of people on that street are concerned and enough to reach out. So I appreciate you taking the time to come up here and just, stay and give your solutions. I'm a big fan of that too. Like, don't come with a problem, come with a solution. What can we do for you? I very much appreciate how well thought this was. And like I said, so thank you for coming out tonight. Like I said, I don't think you're alone. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, sir. Ditto. Come hang out with me on Sunrise Canyon. Water hose, it's a whole lot of fun. I hear you, but I'd like to challenge our staff to also look back at some of the other streets that have had issues with speeders, severe. Not just Sunrise Canyon, but there are other streets that have really voiced a lot of issues with that. I do challenge our staff to look at that beyond just, not just Mr. Jenkins Road, but everybody's road.
Victory for one is a victory for all.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulman? Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My apologies. Councilmember Rubal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, I move to place on the next agenda the establishment of the Neighborhood Traffic Committee. The committee would report its findings with recommendations for improving traffic safety to the council semi-annually, particularly regarding neighborhood speed, school zone safety, road safety conditions adjacent to city parks and recreation areas, and identify limited site safety issues. I move that this action be considered on behalf of all residents. This is the most common complaint of residents of Universal City. So let's take an action at our next meeting, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Before we move forward, it had to be a second.
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second for that one.
Is this open for discussion now that there's been a...
It is now open for discussion.
Okay, so...
Yes.
I'm going to jump in right here. So the motion is for a placement of an item on the next agenda. So unfortunately, we cannot have an open discussion because we don't have that particular item on the agenda this evening.
So, come on, let us have a little fun.
We want to take that open meetings out for the spin, right?
Oh,
yes.
can discuss whether they want it on the next agenda. or not.
Right, we can discuss placement of this agenda, next agenda, but it is limited to placement on the agenda.
Right, so let me read the agenda to you. It says, members may also, this is for council, members may also request specific information or recitation of existing policy from staff or request placement of items on the agenda for discussion or action at the following meeting. So the motion he's made is to have it on the next agenda, not to discuss it. So, and then you have a second by Councilmember Bulman. So not a lot of discussion at this point. It's just basically, are you going to have it on the next agenda or not?
So this says this motion was made, we need to call for a vote.
Yes, sir.
Good. And I can't ask any other questions, I just have to yea or nay.
No, apparently at this point.
At this point, we are just yaying and naying. Yes, sir.
Can the attorney leave the room for a minute?
We can, let me see, I don't see anybody flagging me out there, so sorry, I'm gonna have to remain.
I'm playing, thank you very much, thank you, sir.
And with that being said, I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Rubal,
Yes.
Councilmember Bulman. Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Goolsby,
No.
Councilmember Putt,
No.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Yes.
The motion passes.
That's 4. That motion passes.
And I apologize, Mr. Rubal, sometimes it's very hard to hear you. If you have that written down, if you could give that to me, that way we know, we get specifically what you're asking for. Thank you, sir.
Anything else, sir?
Yes, sir. One again. Section 6.05 of our city charter under capital improvements. Because we're entering the budget season, it actually states that the city manager shall prepare and submit to council a capital improvements program from time to time, either on his or her initiative or when directed to do so by council. The city manager is required to submit a comprehensive plan for review by the city council every even number year. This is an even number fiscal year and even number annual year. And basically, again, we have an operational budget and there's also capital improvement budgets. And what I'd like to do, Mr. Mayor, is ask that the city manager's comprehensive plan for capital improvements be scheduled on a future agenda.
So the capital improvement program for this year is presented with the budget. We present the CIP every year within the budget.
With the budget.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
There will be a section in there.
Anything else, sir?
Let me just clarify, that will include water, sewer, stormwater, facilities, IT, and streets.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Does that also include capital equipment to
Yes, sir.
include what FEMA identifies as some of the most important things for capital equipment buys for the future, and that is fire trucks. So essentially, we need to identify those needs too. So if you say it does, I believe you.
Yes, sir. It includes a lot of capital improvements. Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody who got up and spoke tonight or was quiet for a little bit. Enjoyed the silence. I think the traffic has been an ongoing issue in our community, and that's why I'm not opposed to having the discussion on the future agenda. I think everywhere I've talked to, people have talked about speed being a problem. And so I think it's something that faces a number of our neighborhoods. I'm going to take a quick detour and I'm going to talk about the Heroes Camp. I'm in the middle of Heroes Camp this week. I will say I'm having the most fun watching the kids interact with the police and fire and the EMS workers. Today they all learned CPR. Every single one of them is now certified for 2 years. What a gift to all of their families, to all of their schools. This is such a great experience. Tomorrow they're going to learn Stop the Bleed. It's really a great experience for all of the participants. I encourage and invite any of council to come this week. We're operating 8 to 1. Please come up and you can just watch, and it's really awesome to watch. It's kind of really cool. Mayor came up today. And then I also invite all of you to the graduation on Saturday. We have a big ceremony. They're given a certificate. They're given all their CPR certifications that they've earned during the week. They get a police a picture with the fire department and the police department. So it's a big deal. So please come if you have time this weekend, anywhere between 9 and 1. Thank you.
Councilmember Putt?
I've seen the kids up in the bucket truck. They were pretty excited. I'm just glad they didn't have hoses while they were out there. They weren't that excited. I just want to thank ACOG for having an elected officials meeting last Friday. It was a long time to sit, a very long time to sit, but it was so informative. We had so many aha moments. You think you know what's going on, and there were representatives talking about finance, just absolutely everything. You're sitting there going, okay, that explains this, that explains that. It was so informative. I wish everyone on this council, or I hope everyone on this council has been there, because it makes us more efficient. It lets us know the best way to go about things and get business done correctly, working for a municipality, which is huge. So if you haven't attended, I really recommend you find out when the next one is and go. I appreciate being able to go, and I look forward to whatever the next workshop is. You always have to keep learning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. This past week, I actually had the opportunity to go one-on-one with 5 of our 6 council members. Had a sideline with Councilmember Rubal earlier today. But surprisingly, it was a 15-minute discussion. I asked one question, and I actually let them talk. And then my follow-up question was asking them if they had any questions for me. Everybody was asking the same question. What was surprising, basically, is their vision of the city in the next 15 to 20 years. So now everybody knows what the secret was. What was surprising, not necessarily surprising, I kind of suspected it, of the 5 definite opinions of where the city is going to be. The neat thing about it is 4 of those 5 were very, very similar with each other. Now, there was some that were more elaborate and some that were less elaborate based on experiences and things of that nature. But everybody was really looking at the 20,000 plus citizens we have in Universal City, not just one section and section, things of that nature. And it kind of made me wonder. So in the last few days, I've really been thinking about this. I'm going to leave the conversation at this. As far as information goes, and I'll pick up again a little bit when we get to tab C and tab D. And I think it'll clarify this idle heart's concerns and other people's concerns that we're trying to hush people up. Because we're just a governing body. We're not a guessing body. And so there's a lot of innuendos in the policies that says whether or not we use a consensus versus a vote, things of that nature. We'll get a little bit more into it on the C and D, and we'll tie this up. And with that being said, we'll go to action items. Next up is the consent agenda. All matters listed under this item is considered to be routine by City Council and will be one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless desired by the council.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Goolsby and back on them. Can I call for the vote? Excuse me, any discussion on that area? Then call for the vote.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Putt?
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The action items and tab B. Approved construction work for the Olympia Hills Greens and Collars replacement.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I found it kind of funny when Councilmember Fitzpatrick was talking about all the children who are learning the CPR. It would be nice if they could go to the golf course and resurrect or, pump some life back into that grass. But as you're going to find out here when we have our presentation, that is a hopeless situation. It will not come back to life. So, as you know, turf and grass, there's lots of plant pathologists and agronomists, people who are specialized in these type of things, along with staff that we have here. And so they have put a presentation together for you, for those of you who haven't seen the golf course or the greens and what they look like. So we're going to let them go through that. We have Mr. Dale Miller here this evening. He is an economist and has been on our course and is well versed also in the situation out there. So who's going to speak first? Is that Mr. Dale Miller? Yes. If you wouldn't mind coming to the podium. And Sal can do the clip.
All right. Done a bunch of these in the past, so we'll kind of keep it open, but from an experience standpoint, I've been in this industry since 1978. Started working on golf courses back then, went to Texas A&M. Went to Texas A&M in 1987, graduated with a degree in agronomy, which is basically anything that grows. Specialize in golf courses. I've done 50 plus renovations and reconstructions of golf courses across the southern United States. So this is something that I'm very familiar with. I'm more than willing to answer any questions that anybody might have to make you comfortable with it, because this is something that's just like a second language to me. So we can move through it pretty quickly and very confident about what you guys are looking at doing. I'm familiar with all grass types across the country, cool and warm season, soils, water. So the water that you have is something I'm very familiar with. The soils in Texas, and I live in Canyon Lake area, so I'm not too far away from y'all. I'll be able to come in here and help Jeremy. As a matter of fact, Jeremy used to work for me about 30 years ago. So I'm very familiar with him, and I've enjoyed watching him grow over the years. But to kind of get this thing rolling, just as you guys have been told, the project is basically to replace the surface of the greens. The overview on it is to take out what's the collar or the surrounding areas of the greens. The reason why we do that is to make sure that the tie-in to the green is very good. You don't want, for anybody, I'm assuming that some of the people in here, if not most of the people in here, play golf, but you don't want conditions kind of in the bumpy manner going into the green. The grasses on the green are a little bit different than everything else that's out there. They have to be maintained at a lot shorter height to cut. In the agricultural industry, most of the people would look at us as crazy because we maintain things at 1/8 of an inch or less. The way plants work, that doesn't usually work out too good. So the work that has to be done to maintain them in that kind of condition is pretty deep and extensive.
Yeah, just one more thing.
So the Florida dwarf greens that are in place out there have been around about 25, 28 years, somewhere in that range. These days, Florida dwarf isn't considered to be what you would call let's just say a putting green quality grass. The paspalum, as was mentioned earlier, that's on the putting green and one of the chipping greens out on the golf course is the same grass that's going to be going in. It's called Platinum TE. The grass is coming out of the Bay City area to one of the better sod farms in the state of Texas, and the only one that's allowed to grow platinum in the state of Texas. So it's maintained at a very high level. I actually do some work with them. Know the grower over there very well. So you guys are getting an exceptional grass in the golf course. The other thing that makes it very appealing to you guys is the grass is the best grass in the industry for the management of salts. So having effluent water on your golf course, which some people might argue with, some people might argue against, but that grass actually will filter out the salts in the effluent water and manage that water without any question. So you don't have to use potable water, well water, other sources of water, which tend to be a little bit more difficult and harder for some people to accept. Where if we can take effluent water and run it through the golf course and actually filter it out, that's something that golf courses are very good at. In the old days when I was at Barton Creek, we were the National Environmental Steward Award winner, first one in the country. Most of what, if anybody in here is familiar with Austin, Texas, Austin's pretty environmentally sensitive. Barton Creek sits right on probably one of the most pristine, if not the most pristine creeks in the United States. We spent many, many, many years having to demonstrate to the city of Austin that we were in no way, shape, or form polluting the creek, and the systems that we had in place there had to be designed to do that. We didn't have the opportunity to use a grass like this at that time, but I can assure you if we did, we would, because this grass is exceptional for management of salt water. When you think about the things that went on in the golf course, and everybody has a different opinion about that, you know, it all starts with the type of grass that was on the greens. Bermuda grass is a warm season grass, and as everybody in here knows, we've had a very difficult winter the last 2 or 3 winters in a row. I can tell you, seeing a lot of golf courses in the state of Texas, there's quite a few golf courses out there that are having trouble right now, and probably 15 or 20 of them are renovating their golf course greens as well. So you're not the only ones that have had this happen. You are one of the few ones that had Florida dwarf in place. And I hate to use Florida dwarf as an excuse, but Florida dwarf, as its namesake goes, is a Florida-based grass. That grass is not used to very cold temperatures, and especially the temperatures that we've had in Texas the last few winter times. So paspalum, on another count, I can tell you there's some paspalum greens out in West Texas, kind of the area that I'm from, that have made it through significantly colder weather than we had here in Central Texas. The water out in West Texas is also extremely salty, much saltier than the water that you have here on the golf course. So between the combination of excessive heat, drought that they typically have out there, high sodium, high salt levels, and cold weather, the greens have made it through the years very well, very easily. So that the opportunity that you guys have in front of you of putting this grass in place is something I think you should be pretty happy with. I don't think you could make a better choice on the grass to go on these greens. We talked about the aging grass, platinum TE. So from a scope standpoint, again, these are some that we've got methods in place that are pretty set in stone with this now to assure you guys of having the most success getting through the project. Jeremy's been out already taking his time to make sure that you've identified what are considered to be the greens wells. So when the greens are first built, there's a kind of a sand base that goes in where the greens are, where the grass will be planted. That has a distinct line that separates it from the clay base or the native soil around it. So one of the things that Jeremy's had to go out and do is identify where that is. If you were to go out there and look right now, he's taking the time to mow down and actually delineate where those areas are so you can actually see where the grass is going to be planted. The greens are going to pick up probably 15,000 square feet of surface area. Whenever we do the surface floating, which is the leveling off of the green, some of the humps and bumps that are in them that are a little bit too challenging or a little bit, let's just say, out of place for greens that are going to be improved and better are going to be softened. So the greens will have a little bit more pin placement, the greens will have a little bit more playability and less concern from a golfing standpoint. So So the square footage will increase, the identification around the greens from the collars will probably go 5 or 6 feet out. But Jeremy's gonna go around and again and make sure that any little imperfections coming off the greens are taken care of, so you don't have any backup drainage issues. It's a nice, smooth transition. And that we'll have the greatest chance of success for not only the greens, but the collars as well. Collars will also be the same grass, so the Bermuda grass that's around the green is going to be stripped out, probably hauled away, and then replaced before the sprigging goes in. So for anybody that's not familiar, sprigging is when you go to a big field of this particular grass and they take machines out that actually have vertical slicing blades, and they'll pull off a whole bunch of the material from that surface. That's then brought to the golf course intact. It will come in refrigerated trucks, so 100% of that material will be alive when it hits the ground. They'll spread it out, and then machines come out that actually cut it into the surface. So it's going to be buried beneath the surface of the green, kind of cut in about an inch or so. And at that point, Jeremy's going to have to start watering the crazy out of it. It has to be watered for about 2 weeks for that stuff to take root. Once it takes root, it's going to start spreading like crazy. About that time, we'll start mowing it. The heights of cut on it will start going down, and somewhere about that 8-week mark, you should be able to putt on those greens. And I would think you shouldn't have any problem with that. Everything that I've seen happen with that grass to this point, with the sprigging rate that we're going at, you shouldn't have any problem getting there. And hopefully most of you will have the chance to come out and watch it in process. And it's a pretty cool looking thing, watching grass go from the point where it looks like it's dead. When it goes on the green, everybody's going to look at it and how the heck is this going to work? But within 2 weeks, you're going to see little bitty spriggies coming up, little bitty leaves starting to pop, and about 3 weeks later, Jeremy will start mowing. Once that starts to happen, the grass will take off like a rocket ship. And about probably week 6, they should be 100% covered, and by week 8, he should have them in condition for golf. So somewhere probably, in that 8 to 10 week range is kind of the plan for the whole renovation. I'm stuck. Okay, so right now, process-wise, Jeremy's already been out killing the grass, so the initial or the existing grass has already been killed. If you do go out there, you'll notice there's nothing living out there. For those that play on the temporaries, you can see the existing ones behind it. After that grass is completely dead, which we talked about just a second ago, and you can take your hand and rub it across the surface, it'll start to flake up and come off like dust. At that point, we can go in there, and I know from a planning standpoint, the tiller will come in. That surface is then going to be tilled 3 or 4 different directions, about 8 inches deep, so that all that organic material will be evenly dispersed all through the 8-inch profile. If you do that, then you kind of give the green a nice 8-inch bed of organic material. Instead of going in and cutting out the surface like a lot of people do, if you'll go in and do this kind of methodology, you actually can use the organic material that's out there already, and you don't have to import organic material and run the cost of these renovations up to close to $1 million. There's a lot of people that do it that way, but as I said, I've done probably 50 of these things. I've never done it the other way as successfully as the way that you're going to do it here. So even though it's a less expensive way, you should feel very confident that your production or your results are going to be much better. The grass actually likes to have that organic matter. Warm season grasses love to have something organic, something old carbon-based for them to grow in, to kind of hold some moisture and to hold some nutrients back for them. So that's the picture of the tiller that you guys see on the left. That will go again 4 or 5 directions, 3, 4, 5 directions on the greens until everything's evenly dispersed. The picture on the right is a picture of a dead surface. That's a picture of kind of the sod being removed around the greens, and that'll be replaced again with sodded paspalte. So the same grass that's going to be on the greens will be in the collars. And the reason we do that is so that there won't be any encroachment or any contamination of the green down line. If you guys have played golf out there, you'll notice in the greens there's patches and other grasses. That usually happens from either pulling material onto the green in an aerification process, or just for whatever reason, whenever grass comes to golf courses, some contaminated material is in them. Sod farms aren't notorious about having the greatest conditions in the world. They're more about grass production than they are finished quality like a golf course is. So what we do is we put the collars in, and then you bring brand new, fresh, 100% certified material in from the sod farm for the sprigging. And any battle then to make sure that you maintain the greens pristine and uncontaminated is handled in the surrounds, or what we call the collar. So maybe on average, I would say every 5, 6, 7 years, depending on how much encroachment you get from the Bermuda, those collars might have to be removed, which keeps the encroaching grass from coming in and then carrying it into the green surface. If you guys want to keep your greens in great shape for the longest period of time, that's a suggestion I make to everybody, is just fight that battle in the collar, because that's a process. If you have to cut those out, it maybe takes a week. You don't really notice it. It's all sodden just like this, so it doesn't disrupt play. It can actually be done during play, and we've done that many, many times in the past. So all these things go in line with trying to give you guys great greens for the longest period of time. And you've had these here for a long time, but the grass that's on them is just an inferior grass. So what you're going to notice now is that the grass that's going on is a superior grass, and you guys will be very proud. I mean, the discussions that were happening earlier regarding the golf course and their importance in the community are going to be well received. People are going to come out to play this golf course again because the conditions are going to be great. The fairways, as were mentioned, are in really good condition out there right now. The greens have unfortunately always been a little bit of a challenge for you guys. I've watched them over the years, and it's going to be a pleasure to watch them change to something that you're not going to have problems with. So, and as far as your superintendent, I'd like to say Jeremy is more than qualified to keep those things in great condition. So hopefully you guys will be happy with what you're about to have. Part of the process is to go in and make sure all the irrigation's adjusted correctly, make sure the heads are running correctly. Obviously, if you're going to put in a new grass and you've got sticking heads or things that aren't correct, at the point that they go in, you have the potential to kill some grass. Well, you don't want to do that. So Jeremy's going to have to spend some time going around those greens, looking into each one of those heads, making sure they're turning the right speeds, making sure the arcs of them are correct, making sure the flow rates on them are correct, so that you guys can maximize the production and the benefit of the grass. Stuck again. So as far as the plan-wise, we've developed a pretty good plan for this. Jeremy and I have gone over this multiple times. That estimated 8 to 10 week time frame, that shouldn't be a problem for you guys. The good thing is, even if we get some big rains in there, because the scope of the project is only on the greens and the greens won't wash, you're not going to have some of the problems that golf courses under construction have, and big washouts and setbacks. I wouldn't estimate any time concerns if you do get some big Texas thunderstorms in there during this process. Everything should work out fine. Jeremy and I have already worked on the fertilizer plans. It's something, again, that we've done many, many times. We'll work out some of the mowing schedules, the cultural practices, to make sure everything moves along nice and smooth, just as a support mechanism for him. Again, I'm not very far away, so dropping by here is going to be no problem taking care of this. As far as the rest of it, once you guys approve of this, the updates, I would suggest that you go out and you take a peek. And it's the funnest thing in the world to walk people through the renovation process so that you guys can see everything go from where it is to where it will be. It's really interesting. If you've never seen it before, I suggest you go out and take a peek, ride around with Jeremy, let him show you everything, kind of ground level, walk you through it, and kind of get your hands on it and see how it works. And you're only going to get one shot at it, and hopefully you never do it again for 25, 30 more years. And I guess that's about it from my side. So if there's any questions that anybody has, I'd be happy to answer.
Does anybody from the council have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you help with my tomatoes?
My grass.
The question that I have actually has to deal with the issue associated with the timing of the project, again, with the heat index of 105, possibly temperatures in excess of 100 for an excessive period of time, maybe 100 days. Essentially, what implications does that have for this project?
It shouldn't have any impact on it whatsoever. The limiting factor in this will be adequate irrigation. You're going to see water running steadily. The irrigation will be programmed where those greens have to be moistened about every hour during the day. Now, as soon as night gets here, the irrigation can go off. Obviously you don't have to do anything at night because you don't get any transpiration, but during the day, it's critical that those greens remain moist, especially for that first 2 weeks. Once you start seeing it mow and you're starting to see those little leaves pop, the watering habit can change. You'll start to go to more, probably 2, 3, 4 times a day, depending on what the temperature is doing. And obviously, as you said, if it gets so hot that it becomes a concern, all that we have to really do is pick the water up to make sure they stay cool, to make sure they stay moist. And the warm season grass has no problem with the temperature. And we can grow that grass up to probably, 115 or 20 degrees. If you were to go out on those greens, even as they are this time of year, and lay a soil thermometer on the surface of the greens, the temperature of that green will be about 130 degrees. So putting a little bit of moisture will keep it down below that, but that grass is built to handle that kind of temperature. So even though it'll get that hot, you should have no problem, and we do that over and over again. At these other golf courses, I'll be seeing probably another 4 or 5 golf courses in the next week that are doing exactly the same thing. And this is exactly when you want to do it. And so your timing on it's actually very good. You could do it a little bit earlier, but most people like to wait, to be honest with you, until the middle of summer when most people don't like to play golf. And when it's 100 degrees, if we can grow the grass and get these things done at that time of year when you guys are more than willing to give up a little bit of golf, that's usually a pretty good thing. And then come September, those greens will be perfect. You're not going to have any problem when the temperatures start to moderate again. Everything will be good. Yes, sir.
Second question, sir. Can the grass that's being removed, can it be reused in any way?
Well, the collars potentially could. I mean, that's, for bare areas, say along cart paths or other thin areas on the golf course, if Jeremy wants to carry that grass out there, and that's something you guys would like to have, and that's just a discussion that you need to have internally. Make sure, because it's fine. It's the same grass that's on your fairways. So it'll work out perfectly wherever you put it. It just doesn't need to be right up against the grains from that contamination discussion that I had with you earlier. You want to have that separation so that you don't have grains that would ever get contaminated.
And then the question, and Mr. Mayor, the question from the staff, whenever the questions.
Anybody else, you want to hold off and let somebody else have time?
To ask their questions to an expert.
Mr. Vaughan, do you have anything?
I just move for approval.
I'll second.
I'll So you're moving for approval, okay? And a second by
I'll second.
Councilmember Putt. So is there any discussion?
Sir? Yes, sir. The two questions for staff.
Yes.
Question number one, the funding for this project is from the 2024 budget, which was from the venue tax for $550,000. The proposal to approve would then move the parking lot extension project to the next fiscal year. However, that would depend upon approval of the venue tax use at some time in the future. So the question that I have, if this is a priority for the golf course, for the operation of the golf course, is it a priority that replaces the parking lot project with the condition that the parking lot project then will be bumped to a next fiscal year consideration rather than an automatic consideration?
I can answer that very good. Can I answer that before you ask your next question, sir? So yes, we are asking you to reprioritize the golf course greens over the parking lot. As you know, we do have the funding in the venue project for the parking lot expansion. And if you've been out by the golf course and driven by it lately, guess what? Our parking lot that's usually overflowing is pretty much empty right now. So I think that we can forego doing the parking lot. And if we pick back up, we'll just have to continue to apologize to golfers and the bridal parties and others that they are parking out in the dirt, and hope that council provides funding for the parking lot expansion in next year's budget.
Yes, same question. Yes, and a second question, Mr. Mayor, is also directed to staff, and that is, has this project substantially begun already prior to approval of council?
Has it substantially begun? No. So the only thing that they've done at this point is that if you'd gone out a few days ago, you could see that pretty much, I would say 85 to 90% of the grass on the greens was dead. I know that Jeremy and his staff have gone out and have worked to kill the remainder of the grass off so that they can prepare to do something. The other work that they have done is they have cut some temporary greens in order to try to keep the golfers to keep coming out at the golf course. But a temporary green is the same old floor dwarf grass that we had with no collars and with all of the weeds and everything else popping.
So if council voted no on this proposal, would those areas be still operational?
The permanent greens are not operational now. They are not operational. They cannot be played on. They're not being used. There are some golfers that are willing to use the temporary green. And if you're going to ask, can the temporary green become a permanent green, the answer is no, it cannot.
And then, ma'am, will there be an adjustment in user fees to project forward?
Yes, sir.
For grounds maintenance?
Yes, thank you. So we've already had to make a downward adjustment in our green fees right now just to get people to come out. When we did not have the temporary greens out there, there was a dramatic drop in attendance. Not only in attendance for golfers, but the golfers were not buying beverages while they were there. They were not buying food while they were there. They were not staying afterwards. I'll just say, I'm sorry, they were pissed. And they just were mad at everybody and they were leaving. So with the temporary greens, Sal and his staff have done a good job blasting out, letting the golfers know that there's a temporary greens that are in place and that the staff is working with the city council for a solution to the situation that we face today. That has made them moderately happy. So some of them are coming back out at the significant reduced rate. As Mr. Miller had indicated, once if council approves the new grass and once it is established, the staff will have to go out and do some pretty heavy marketing to let everyone know that the greens are back and that they're in excellent shape. And at that time, once they are established, we do intend to increase our green fees.
Thanks, Karen. Does anyone else have questions? think, Ms. Putt had.
Not so much questions, but I did go out and tour yesterday and was really amazed because I'm familiar with the golf course, not because of my name, but we're out there a lot. And I really do have to appreciate all the work you've done to keep the golfers who are coming happy. And I think that will grow. Before all this went away, before we had all these problems, our rating was fantastic. And now that we're not going to Band-Aid our golf course back together again, I hope, and we're going to make it top-notch, I think our ratings here in Universal City will be phenomenal for the work that you all do. And thank you, Mr. Duke, for the numbers. That's really important to see how many people are coming from out of our area into our city. And that was just a really small amount. But I have talked to them about, yes, this is a snowball effect. This is happening. This is affecting everyone in the golf course. Even our servers are affected by this. So the fact that you can get this done in such a good time, but it's a permanent fix, I appreciate all the work that you've put into it because this has been a lot of work and you've really had to be aggressive with it. So thank you. I'm done.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to add one quick thing. While I was waiting for my visit with Sal, thank you so much. I was watching somebody come out and pay his green fees, and he expressed just your sentiment. I'm so happy that you guys are doing something. I'm happy to come out and play right now because I know you guys are being aggressive in what you're trying to do out here, and I appreciate it. So to Kim's point, they really are appreciative of what we're doing and waiting to give it a chance. So that's all.
Anybody else? Somebody's got a chance? Then call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move for an amendment. The amendment to read, staff is recommending that the parking lot expansion to be, instead of moved to the fiscal year, that to be stricken and substituted to be considered in the next fiscal year.
That's a given, sir. We can't move forward with the parking lot expansion unless council approves the funds. You don't need to say that.
So I'll call for the vote.
You'll have to approve that in the next budget anyway. If you don't approve the parking lot expansion in the next budget, we won't do it.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It's been so moved, and therefore, please ask for a second for the amendment.
Okay.
You can ask for the second here.
Okay. Is there a second for the amendment? No second, so it dies on the stage. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
The motion passes.
That passes. Outstanding. I think it's a good move for everybody. I think it's a good move for Universal City and one of our premier emeralds in our marketing division. Now let's go to tab tab C and tab D. The assumption is that I'm going to be calling for a vote tonight, and that's probably my fault. I kind of did it that way. During my discussion this week with 5 of your council members that were very, very open and very passionate about the beliefs and stuff. However, it did come about that we have a divided council. I was told that I have 2 3-member teams, and Ms. Ivanhart kind of confirmed that today, saying that basically that 3 people were trying to be silenced. The last thing I would ever want is to silence anyone in this town trying to improve the city. And we got a 6-member team up here supposedly going for the improvement of the city. I personally think I deserve better than 2 3-member teams. I deserve a 6-member team. I think you as citizens deserve a 6-member team. I think the employees of the city deserve a 6-member team. And I think the business leaders of our city deserve a 6-member team. The only way we're going to get there is to be able to discuss. Now, we cannot absolutely discuss up here on council all the issues that need to be done, and under the code of conduct and under the rules and procedures. Mr. Rubal actually made a good example today by recommending an agenda item, and going to vote. So we made the vote and going in there. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing, not by consensus. We cannot rule by consensus. With that being said, we can't rule if we're never going to be able to agree to disagree. So I am going to suggest, I'm actually going to ask the city manager to arrange a workshop for the city council, all of us. We'll have it proctored, and it will be all of us together. We'll be sitting face to face with each other as equals, and we can speak freely during that time frame. We're not going to be held accountable for or held up by different rules and propagandas. Yes, it will be open to the public, but you will not be able to participate in the open discussions. This is a team building workshop so that we can come together and figure out exactly how we want to go. Now, with that being said, I'm actually going to ask for a consensus. By the way, the word consensus implies the majority of. So whether a consensus of 3 people, consensus of 7 people, majority still would rule the same as a quorum. In our case, our quorum is 4. We need a minimum of 4 out of 7. So with that being said, would you agree to a consensus to a workshop at a future date to be determined? And I'll start with Mr. Vaughan.
I don't see the points of it.
Okay.
I guess I don't fully understand, sorry.
Well,
There's no
we're
understanding.
going to work together, and we need to, the rules and procedures and conducts are maybe antiquated. We need to go through them and make sure we're all on the same page. And this will give an opportunity for us to all be on the same page.
So wait, a workshop on rules and procedures or team building? Because they sound like 2 different
Well, I'm sorry,
things.
I used the word as team building because this is all we're team. So we need to come together in a consensus at a workshop to come up with a comprehensive rules of engagement.
I'm going to say no just because we voted on this in November and several of us turned in massive amounts of work and put a lot of work on the city staff where they had to continually go through every single person's and then combine them all.
And here we are.
So I'm going to go no.
And here we are, still 2 different teams. So I don't want to silence anybody, but I think we need to move forward for the city. So I'm going to, it's 2 no. Mr. Mayor, for discussion. Right now, I'm going for consensus, if I can.
Okay, so unlike the request earlier that said that it has to be at the next council meeting, this is just at a to be determined future council member?
No, this is going to be a separate workshop, actually, a separate workshop. It's not going to be a council meeting at all.
Okay, but it's not like in 2 weeks?
No. Whenever convenient, we'll try to get
something that we can ask staff to put a lot of time and effort into.
Yes, this is not something to throw together.
Actually come back with us with a well thought out plan.
Correct.
Not something that's just going to happen in 2 weeks.
I would hope there would be more like about 8 weeks down the road by the time we get to it.
I can back something like that. I just can't back something that's going to happen, that we're asking staff to throw together.
Oh, I have to agree with you 100%.
I just had to get that out there about why I said no earlier.
Okay. So is that a yes or no?
That's going to be argued about.
Mr. Rubal?
You do have a team, Mr. Mayor. It's a team of 6 that are committed to deliberating the issues before the city.
So do I have your consensus to go to the workshop?
Mr. Mayor, with due respect, without identifying without identifying a motion for items on the agenda, it is an item that should not be considered this time. Therefore, I request that your motion be withdrawn until it's more formal.
Question 9.
Yes, I think it's a good idea to have an open dialogue and to kind of discuss what it means. I think being on it has felt like there have been camps, and I don't want to feel that way. I know we all were elected with the hope of serving our community and doing what's best, and I believe if we all do that together going forward, that we are on the same team. I think that there's hope for it, but I would love to have the opportunity to sit down and really have a dialogue where we're not discussing agenda items, so we're talking about how we're going to move forward as a group.
I'm all for it, absolutely.
So maybe get this, there's 3 for and 3 against. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I will be bringing the first tie and we'll go for the workshop. So, Ms. Turner, at some
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Mr. Mayor, point of order.
May I finish my sentence, please?
Mr. Mayor, point of order takes precedence as a privilege. The point of order, Mr. Mayor, is no item was specifically defined for the action of council to vote on.
I didn't vote for anything. We went for a consensus. That's your point of order. And all firm.
So a consensus is a form of a vote. And so long as we go through and everybody understands the item being voted on, which in this case was a request for a workshop rather than a discussion on these items tonight. Right, so a consensus it is still a formal vote, but it is taken in an informal manner. So it is a vote of the city council, it is the will of the council to determine whether to discuss tonight or move forward to workshop. And so y'all ended up with 3-3, and I believe the mayor broke the tie in favor of workshop.
Thank you. So, Ms. Turner, we can work on a future date for that somewhere in the next. Now we've got a big, busy summer coming up with a lot of different, with all the different budgets and everything else.
We'll query the council members for a good date and time for that, and then get that set up for you.
That's all on the agenda items today. With that, there's no other questions or anything? Sure.